Welcome back. Close your eyes if you wish and let yourself settle. Tonight we return to the ancient myths, to a time when the heavens themselves were still learning what it meant to hold power. We ask a single question: what happens when a god tries to swallow the future itself? Let us begin. There is a mountain that touches the sky, not metaphorically, not in the way poets speak of tall things. Mount Olympus rises so high that its peak vanishes into cloud and myth, where the air itself turns to something neither mortals nor even minor gods can breathe. Up there, beyond the reach of eagles, beyond the concern of storms, the Olympian gods make their home. Marble halls that were never built, only willed into being. Columns of white stone that glow with their own light. Floors polished smooth by footsteps that leave no prints. The temperature never changes. There is no weather here, only presence. The scent of ambrosia hangs in the air, sweet and heavy like honey warmed in summer sun. Occasionally, the sound of laughter. Sometimes, the low rumble of divine conversation. And always, always, the sense that you are being watched by something older than time itself. This is where Zeus rules, king of gods and men, the cloud gatherer, the thunder bringer. He sits on a throne carved from a single piece of celestial bronze, and when he shifts his weight, the entire mountain feels it. But tonight, we are not concerned with his throne. We are concerned with his head. Let Zeus speak for himself, as he was in those early days of his reign. Picture him younger than you might imagine. The war against the Titans is won, but not long won. He is still learning what it means to be king, still making mistakes that will echo through eternity. I am Zeus, and I am afraid. You would not think a god could admit such a thing, but in the privacy of my own mind I confess it. I have swallowed my wife. Her name was Medes, Medes the Titaness, Medes of the good counsel, Medes whose wisdom exceeded even my own. We loved each other, or at least I believed we did. She helped me overthrow my father Kronos. She gave him the potion that made him vomit up my siblings, the ones he had swallowed at birth, convinced that one of his children would overthrow him just as he had overthrown his own father. Do you see the pattern? Do you see the curse that runs through our family like a river of dark water? Father devours child. Child overthrows father. The cycle turns and turns, generation after generation, and we are all caught in it. When Medes told me she was with child, I should have rejoiced. But instead, I heard a prophecy. The fates themselves, those ancient sisters who spin the thread of destiny, whispered it to me. Your wife will bear you 2 children, they said. First, a daughter of great wisdom. Then, a son who will overthrow you and take your throne. I had just won my throne. I had just freed the world from my father's cruelty. I was not ready to lose it all to an unborn son, so I did what my father had done. I became what I had fought against. I tricked Medes. I challenged her to a shape-shifting contest, the kind of game gods play when they are young and foolish. She turned herself smaller and smaller, showing off her power until finally she became a fly, and I swallowed her whole. That was months ago. Since then, she has been inside me, silent, waiting, and I have tried to forget what I have done. But you cannot forget a person made of wisdom. You cannot digest counsel and good judgment. They stay with you. They change you from within. And now something is wrong. The pain begins as a whisper, a small pressure behind Zeus's eyes, barely noticeable at first. He is in the great hall, settling a dispute between Poseidon and Apollo over some trivial matter of a coastal shrine. The words of the arguing gods fade into background noise as the pressure increases. It feels as though something is pushing outward from the inside of his skull, as though his own thoughts have become too large for the space that contains them. He dismisses the court. The gods file out, some confused, some smirking, thinking their king has simply grown bored of their squabbles. Zeus remains on his throne, pressing his fingertips to his temples. The pain grows. Not the sharp, sudden pain of injury, but the deep, persistent pain of something fundamentally wrong, something that should not be happening, even by the strange standards of divine existence. Hours pass. The pain becomes unbearable. Zeus, who has endured lightning channeled through his own body, who has felt the crushing grip of Typhon the monster, who has survived a war that shook the foundations of reality itself, finds himself unable to stand. The pressure builds and builds. It is as though an entire consciousness is trying to break free from inside his mind, which, of course, is exactly what is happening. He calls for Hephaestus, his son, the smith god, the only one who might understand problems of craft and making even when the thing being made is trying to forge itself out of a god's skull. Hephaestus arrives, limping on his twisted leg, his arms still black with soot from the forges. He takes one look at his father and knows this is no ordinary affliction. Divine ichor, the golden blood of the gods, has begun to seep from Zeus's ears. The king's eyes have rolled back, showing only white. His hands grip the arms of his throne so hard that the bronze has begun to dent beneath his fingers. "What do you need?" Hephaestus asks. His voice is calm. He has learned not to panic in the face of impossible tasks. His entire existence has been one impossible task after another. "Open it," Zeus manages to say. "Open my head." Hephaestus does not argue, does not ask for explanation. He returns to his forge, deep in the mountain's heart where he keeps his tools. He selects an axe, not just any axe, one he has been forging for years, not knowing what it was for. Bronze blade, sharpened to an edge so fine it could split a hair lengthwise. Handle of sacred oak, wrapped in leather from the hide of the first bull ever sacrificed. He has poured his skill into this tool, all his frustrated artistry, all his desire to create something perfect in a world that has always called him imperfect. He returns to the throne room. Zeus has collapsed forward now, his head in his hands, a low moan escaping his lips that sounds like distant thunder. The other gods have begun to gather, drawn by the sound of their king's suffering. Hera stands in the doorway, her face unreadable. She knows about Medes. She knows what Zeus has done. Part of her wants to watch him suffer. Part of her, despite everything, is afraid of what happens if the king of the gods can die. Hephaestus raises the axe. For a moment, every god in the room holds their breath. Then he brings it down, swift and clean, onto the crown of Zeus's head. The sound is not what you would expect. Not the crack of splitting bone, not the wet sound of injury. Instead, it is like a door being opened, like a lid being removed from something that has been sealed too long. Light pours from the wound, not blood, light. Pure, golden, blazing light that forces every god to shield their eyes or turn away. And from that light she comes, Athena. She emerges fully formed, not as an infant, not as something helpless and new. She steps out of her father's head as a grown woman, tall and terrible and beautiful. She wears armor that has never been forged, a breastplate of silver and gold that fits her perfectly. In one hand, a spear that gleams like captured starlight. On her other arm, a shield polished to a mirror shine. On her head, a helmet crested with horsehair that ripples though there is no wind. Her eyes are gray, the gray of storm clouds, the gray of olive leaves in morning light, the gray of stone that has endured 1,000 years and will endure 1,000 more. She looks around the throne room at the assembled gods and she sees everything, understands everything. She has been conscious inside her father's head for months, listening to his thoughts, learning the workings of power and politics and divine responsibility. She has been born knowing what most must spend lifetimes learning. She opens her mouth and gives a cry, not a baby's cry, a war cry, the shout of a warrior entering battle. The sound of it shakes the mountain. In the world below, mortals look up at Olympus and see lightning, though the sky is clear. They hear thunder, though there are no storms. They feel, just for a moment, as though the world has changed in some fundamental way, as though something new and powerful has entered existence. Zeus rises from his throne. The wound in his head is already closing, the light fading, though a faint scar remains where Hephaestus's axe broke through. Father and daughter look at each other. In her face he sees Medes, the shape of her eyes, the set of her mouth, but he sees himself too, his strength, his authority, his refusal to bow. "Welcome, daughter," he says. His voice is rough, exhausted, but there is wonder in it, and relief. Because she is not a son, she is not the child prophesied to overthrow him. She is something else entirely. Athena does not bow, does not kneel. She simply nods once, acknowledging him. Then she turns to the assembled gods, and they see in her something they have not seen before, a new kind of divinity, not the raw power of Zeus's lightning or Poseidon's earthquakes, not the wild passion of Aphrodite or the bloodlust of Ares. Something else, something that combines her mother's wisdom with her father's strength, intelligence as a weapon, thought as a form of warfare. She will become the goddess of wisdom, yes, but also of strategic warfare, of craft and weaving, of the kind of courage that comes not from rage but from conviction, of just causes and defensive battles. She will build cities. Athens will be named for her after she defeats Poseidon in a contest by giving the people an olive tree, a gift of peace and prosperity that the sea god's saltwater spring cannot match. She will be called upon by heroes, Perseus when he hunts Medusa, Odysseus when he tries to find his way home, Heracles when his strength alone is not enough. She will guide them not by doing the work for them, but by teaching them to think, to plan, to use their minds as well as their muscles, but that is all in the future. Right now, in this moment, she is simply new, simply herself. The gods approach her cautious, curious, Hera with barely concealed jealousy, Apollo with artistic appreciation, Artemis with something like recognition, seeing another virgin goddess, another woman who will define herself on her own terms, Hermes with a grin, always delighted by anything unexpected. Hephaestus stands apart, still holding his axe. He looks at what he has brought into the world, and for once, for just a moment, he feels proud of his work. He has delivered a goddess. He has midwifed wisdom itself into existence. The celebration that follows lasts for days. Nectar flows. Ambrosia is served on golden plates. Music fills the halls of Olympus, played on lyres that tune themselves. But through it all, Athena remains slightly apart, present but observing, learning, watching. She has been born into a family of gods who are petty and jealous and passionate, who start wars over golden apples and mortal lovers. She loves them in her way, but she also sees them clearly, sees their flaws, and she decides in those first days of her existence that she will be different. She will be the one they come to for counsel, the one who thinks before acting, the one who plans, the one who remembers that wisdom is not just about knowing things, but about knowing when and how to use what you know. She will be her mother's daughter in that way, even though Medes is gone. Even though all that remains of the Titaness is the legacy she left behind, coded into this gray-eyed daughter. And what of Zeus? He recovers. The pain fades. The scar on his head becomes just another mark of his strange existence, another story to tell. But something has changed in him too. He has done what his father did, tried to swallow his fear and control his future. But unlike his father, he has paid no price. His daughter loves him, or at least respects him. She will become his favorite child, the one he trusts most. He will give her his aegis, his shield, the symbol of his protection. He will allow her to wield his thunderbolts, the only one besides himself permitted to do so. But in quiet moments, when he is alone, he wonders about Medes, wonders if some part of her consciousness remains inside him still, if her wisdom has become his wisdom. If he is, in some strange way, carrying her forever, he will never speak of it, never admit what he has done. But the guilt is there, small and persistent, like a pebble in a shoe you can never quite remove. The world continues. The myths pile up, story upon story. But the birth of Athena remains one of the strangest, one of the most telling. A goddess of wisdom born from a god's attempt to avoid his fate. A daughter who embodies everything her father feared and everything he hoped for. Power and intelligence united. Strength tempered by thought. When you see an owl in the night, eyes gleaming, silent in flight, remember Athena. That is her bird, patient, watchful, seeing in the darkness what others miss. When you face a problem that cannot be solved by force alone, when you must think your way through, when you must be clever instead of strong, you are touching the domain of the gray-eyed goddess, she who was born fully formed, she who emerged in armor, she who came into the world not helpless but ready. And perhaps that is the real lesson. Not every birth is gentle. Not every beginning is small and soft. Sometimes wisdom arrives like a warrior, breaking free of the very thing that tried to contain it. Sometimes the thing we fear most becomes the thing we need most. Sometimes trying to swallow the future only means we carry it inside us until it grows too large to be contained and it breaks free in a blaze of light, fully formed and undeniable. So we come to the end of tonight's story. The goddess is born. The mountain has stopped shaking. The gods return to their eternal squabbles and loves and wars, but the world has changed. Wisdom has entered it as a living force, a divine presence, a gray-eyed woman in silver armor who watches and waits and knows. Thank you for listening. Next time we will speak of another beginning, another moment when the world changed forever. Until then, rest well. Let these old stories settle into your thoughts like snow onto silent ground. And if you found some peace in this tale, some calm in the midst of chaos, consider joining us again. There are so many more myths to explore, so many more moments when gods and mortals shaped the world we know. But for now, sleep well. Dream of mountains that touch the sky. And remember that sometimes the most powerful things emerge not in whispers but in blazing light, ready for whatever comes next.